2, 3. Have you ever been to a tropical island, laid on a beautiful beach with not a care in the world? Well, when I was 10 years old, my family traveled to a tropical island off the coast of Thailand. We spent our Christmas holiday in paradise. The day after Christmas, my sisters and I were making sandcastles on the beach when my dad told us it's time to go back to the room. As I followed my dad, I noticed all the animals went quiet. Birds stopped chirping. Monkeys quickly climbed up the forest. Then I heard a loud scream, and I looked to the beach and saw people frantically running in every direction. It was pure chaos. Then I noticed all the water in the bay had left. There were now boats on the sand, people with diving gear on reefs. What is happening? I looked out onto the horizon and saw a thin, white line. Within seconds, I saw it was the biggest tsunami I've ever seen. A 50-foot tsunami coming at our island at a rapid speed. "Where's Mom?" I asked my dad. My mom had been on the phone in the hotel lobby, finalizing our flights back to New Zealand, my homeland at the time. We scanned the crowds looking for her. Then I heard someone yelling, "Run, run," warning people to get to high ground. I knew that voice. My mom sprinted towards us, pleading for us to run. When I looked out at the bay, the tsunami was now a few hundred feet from us, its force shaking the entire island. I looked over at the pool and watched as a woman lay on a lounge chair, frozen in fear. Besides her, a baby screamed. I never saw that mom or baby again. My family then sprinted towards a pathway up the mountain on the island. My dad held one sister and my mom held the other sister. As the eldest, I ran beside my parents the fastest my little legs could carry me. I looked up and saw a peculiar sight. Somehow, in the middle of the chaos, my sister had managed to find a bucket, fill it up with water, and had rescued fish. My dad asked her to let go of the bucket, but she clung to the bucket like her life depended on it, gave him a side eye, and shouted, "No, the fishes," as she would call them, "would survive." As we sprinted up the hill, I felt terrified. I was so tired. My legs were sore. It didn't seem possible for me to keep up with my parents. I looked back for a split second, and there it was. The tsunami was so close. I knew I was seconds away from death. I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna die. "Run!" my dad shouted at me. With everything I had left in me, I focused on the voice of my father. I told my body to run faster, and now I'm several strides ahead of him. We made it to the top of the mountain. There, I dropped to my knees, depleted and completely overwhelmed. At that very moment, thousands of people were losing their lives. I shouldn't be here today, speaking to you right now. 3 tsunami waves struck that day. Over 230,000 people died. The Boxing Day tsunami devastated the coastline of 14 countries, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in record history. You want to know what I remember the most distinctly in the midst of death and destruction? It's the survivors who put their basic needs aside to help others. 2 of those heroes were my parents. A day later, a rescue boat came to pick up the survivors. My mom tenderly looked at us and said, "Girls, we're gonna stay here and do whatever we can to help." At the time, I could not understand why we would do this. I desperately wanted to fly back to New Zealand, crawl into my bed, and act as if none of this nightmare had happened. I wanted to leave this place of terror. Yet, my parents chose to remain on an island where boats hung on trees and buildings were just rubble. For the following week, we lived off a small portion of spicy rice and water. I witnessed a community of once strangers, now comrades, move dead bodies, sweep away debris, and begin slowly rebuilding. It took me years to comprehend how courageous of a decision that was. My parents' conviction to stay and help was strong enough to not let fear, starvation, or another tsunami stop them. They were willing to care for a cause bigger than themselves at a cost. They chose, as parents with 3 little kids, to remain in uncertainty rather than safety, to care about a land that was not even their own. When we got back to New Zealand, life continued. The only difference was I was now terrified of the ocean. I saw it as a killing machine, and I didn't want to go anywhere near it. 6 months after the tsunami, my parents enrolled my sisters and me in beach lifeguard training. Beach lifeguard training. Imagine that, as in learning how to rescue people from the ocean. On the first day of training, I was so scared. Being a lifeguard is a scary job for anyone, and for this little curly-haired girl, it was almost unimaginable. I'd barely slept in weeks. Every night I had the same nightmare of the tsunami swallowing me. Then came a defining moment of my life. My dad, he saw my distress, walked over to me, got down on his knees, looked me in the eye, and said, "Riley, either courage or fear exists in your life, and all you need is a little more courage." A little more courage. That summer, I fought a battle between fear and courage. And if I'm honest with you, most of the time, fear won. But I didn't stop fighting. I knew that showing up at training put myself at square one in a position to rebuild my relationship with the ocean. As I did the very thing I feared, a little more courage started to grow, and something shifted in me. I started to think of others, not just myself. The job of a lifeguard is to keep others safe. On the other side of you, facing your fears is the gift of being able to help someone. This is the ultimate type of courage, the courage to care. This courage is not an absence of fear, but the assessment that someone's need is greater. We all know the regretful feeling of a missed opportunity for the courage to care. For me, it was when I drove by a man experiencing homelessness with a bag full of groceries. I could have said hello and shown him kindness. Instead, I overthought it and let the what-ifs win. I still remember that man's face. Can you think of a moment like this in your life? Maybe you saw a car crash and knew you should have stopped, or watched someone be rude in a store and wanted to say something. What were the underlying fears? What if you had just a little more courage? My friend, I know you want to do something important with your life. You want your time on earth to be felt. You want it to echo. Your life is too short to let fear write your story. Give courage the pen. I ask you this: what do you want to do with your precious life? I hope you choose to care for the people around you who are in need. Your courage only needs to touch one life for the ripple effect of courage to begin. If you change one life, you can change the world. Can you find just one life to care about today? One day, I sat on my favorite New Zealand beach. At this point, I'd been a certified beach lifeguard for years. It was a stormy day, but there was nowhere else I'd rather be. Then suddenly, I heard a scream for help. I spotted a man 600 feet from the shore, struggling to stay above water. My instincts kicked in, and I ran to the ocean. Just before I dove into the ocean, I stopped. Despite the adrenaline, I felt terrified. My whole body was shaking. But I counted to 3. 1, 2, 3, and dove into the ocean. 3 seconds of courage. That's my motto. It takes 3 seconds of courage for you to face your fears. I dove into the ocean. I could feel the pull of the riptide. By the time I reached the man, his body was sinking to the bottom of the ocean. I took a breath and dove down and pulled him to the surface. I pulled this 250-pound man on my back. I'd done this in training before. And I shouted at him. No response. I put my hand on his neck, but I couldn't feel a pulse. He had drowned. 1, 2, 3. 3 more seconds to change someone's life. I grabbed this man and pulled him onto my back. I'd done this in training before, but this is the first time I needed to get it right. I pumped his chest and kicked my legs to keep us above water. A minute in, no response. I kept going. Another minute. Then a miracle happened. The man threw up the water in his lungs. He was alive. He was semi-unconscious, but I could feel his heart beating. Then another miracle happened. Little did I know, a retired doctor happened to be walking on the stormy beach. He had spotted us from a distance and immediately feared the worst, that there would be 2 deaths today. Not sure what else to do, he called for an ambulance. When we reached the shore, exhausted, the doctor sprinted towards us and took over recovery. I share this story with you because if I, someone who survived a tsunami, can face her greatest fears and help another, so can you. But it took years of showing up to wrestle with my fears day after day. If you do this deep soul work, and trust me, I know it's hard, you can turn the very place you feared into a place of victory and impact. Do you want to know something I'm pretty proud of? Today, my favorite thing to do in the entire world is surf. Yes, surf. Surf mini tsunami-looking waves. Today, I get to teach others how to surf. What if you beat fear and taught others how to do the same? In a world that says, you do you, mind your own business and stay in your own lane, what if there was an alternative way to live, to choose to care? This ultimate type of courage will cost you something. It might cost you a bag of groceries, your precious time, or even your pride. But I can promise you this, living with the courage to care is the most fulfilling way to live your life. Every day, there are opportunities to help people that are living through their own tsunamis. The next time you are given an opportunity, I hope you count to 3 and choose the courage to care. Even today, before I spoke to you on the stage, I felt fear, so much fear. But I count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Count to 3 with me, together. 1, 2, 3. Again. 1, 2, 3. It only takes 3 seconds of courage to change someone's life. 1, 2, 3.